For input and output, for output, we have write and write line. Those will both write to the console. The difference is write line inserts a carriage return at the end and write does not. Okay, that is the only difference between using the two of them. And we are using write and write line with string interpolation, which actually allows us to put our variables or our variable names in curly braces, and it will display the value that is stored. So you can either, create a string variable with the string interpolation character, or in a write line, you can include that little $sign, which is the string interpolation character, followed by the double quotes and whatever it is that you want to print out. And just keep in mind that anytime you want to print the contents of a variable, you just put it in curly braces, and then it'll print whatever value is being stored. Okay, and that's just kind of a really easy, nice way of printing out values and text together without concatenating or doing anything like that. As far as reading in data from the console, we have readline, which automatically assumes that the data that you're reading in is a string. Okay, so if you just use console.readline by itself and you don't do any kind of conversion, it is reading a string in. If you want to pull in a number and you want to store it as a number, then you have to do some type of typecasting. And this is typically done when you're reading in the value. And so the parse methods are used specifically to typecast that string into different types of numbers. So if it's an integer that you are typing, you can use int.parse. And then in parentheses, you have console.readline. And it takes that string and converts it into an integer, which allows you to store it as an integer. Okay, and so here is integer ice creams, and then here is the assignment statement where we're reading in from the console. We've got the int.parse method that is doing the conversion to integer, and we are storing it. Double is very similar. Instead of int.parse, you use double.parse. Okay, and if you have Boolean, it's the same thing, right? It's bool.parse. If you want to read in a character and you're using readline, okay, then it's char.parse. Okay, and so here is a little example. So in this program, we've got a string that we're reading in. You can see we've got a Boolean. And actually, we should be looking at this one. Sorry. We've got a Boolean. And here we've got bool.parse. And then inside our if statement, then we've got a double.parse, another int.parse. Okay, so a pretty good example of how to convert that input. And then down here we have char.parse. So those were the parse methods. You can also use convert methods. And it's just a little different way to convert your string input into the different data types. So to convert to integer, you're going to use convert to int 32. Okay, and so this would be in place of int.parse. Okay, the end result is going to be the same. It's going to do that string to integer conversion for you. And you'll notice there's a version for double, convert.toDouble, convert.toBoolean, convert.toCharacter. And then this is basically the same program that you saw before, but you'll note that for the conversions, we're using the convert to methods. Okay, so here's convert to Boolean, convert to double, convert to int. Okay, the only other difference in this program is that instead of using the concatenation operator to display our variables and our text, we are using string interpolation instead. So for those of you that wanted to compare the two methods of output, here is the string interpolation method. And then if we scroll up, this is what it looks like using the concatenator. And both methods work. It's kind of a matter of, personal preference. Perhaps what you're used to. A lot of programming languages use the concatenator, and they both work equally well. I personally think it's a little easier to use string interpolation. That is why that is pretty much what I use. So that is kind of the review on console.readline. The other way to read in input is to use console.read. But console.read is used for a single character. And by default, it retrieves an integer. And so what you have to do is then convert the integer into a character. So you use console.read and you store it in a variable. And then you have to take that variable and convert it over to a character. Okay, so that's one issue with using console.read. The second issue is that it still has left the new line character in the queue. So not only do you end up, having to convert it into a character, you also need another statement to remove the new line. And so what I normally do if I'm using console.read, and you will see this in the lab exercises because I do have them input single characters for a menu. I use console.readline after console.read just because it gets rid of everything in the queue. So what is our process here? If we wanted to view a character, we would probably read in from the queue, and then we would take that variable name and use, convert.toChar and pass it to the method to convert it into a character. Okay, and that's what this is going to show you how to do. So here we've got our input that we're reading in, and here is converting it to a character. Because you can actually key in a letter here, right? You can key in a Q to quit, but if you're storing it as an integer, it's not going to look like a Q. So you have to do the convert to character to get it back into the letter format that you want to see. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways you can do this. You can do it, in a two-step process, or you can actually convert it to character while you're reading it in. Okay, that would be one step and it's done. Okay, so here is just a little example. Enter your character. Here we enter it. And then we're just kind of converting it into the letter format, and then we're showing them the decimal version of what they entered. So this actually is a pretty good one for you guys to run so that you understand what this is doing. Oops, helps if you copy. Okay, so let's run this. All right, so I'm going to enter a character. We'll enter a capital C. So when we use convert to character, I can actually see my C. However, if I didn't do the conversion and I just displayed what was read into input, the value 67 is displayed. Okay, so when I use console read and I store it in input, 67 is what I get. Okay, in order to see that letter, I have to do convert to character. Okay, so hopefully that all makes sense to you. You can copy it and run it. And here's kind of a sample run that I did, so you can kind of see how that works. Here's just another little version. Here I'm using convert to character when I'm reading it. So I kind of get rid of that. I don't even deal with that decimal version. And this is actually better in a while loop, but this will process one letter at a time. So if you wanted to see this, and let's see. No, I wasn't done running the other one. Okay. And I'm going to change this to while. Whoops. So this will read whatever I key in. It'll read one letter at a time from the queue. Okay, because that's what console.read does. It only reads one at a time. So if you're going to do more than one letter, okay, like this, it'll start by reading the first letter, and then it writes out the uppercase version of the letter. So you can see that it is actually doing the convert to character. Then it reads the next letter, and it keeps going until it hits the end. Okay, so all of these examples, you guys can copy and paste and run. And then you can kind of play around with the code to see what it does.